start with thank you very much, and that'll be it. So, well, hi, I'm Garu, or Garu, or whatever. Just say, hey, you. And I'll probably answer. So, and this is a talk about, well, Perl from Ipanema. Now, this is a bit about me, in case you don't know me, you know, the little Facebook thingy. I thought it would be nice. This is me, the only one that actually is me. So, anyway. This is a talk about the girl from Ipanema, you know, tall and tan and young and lovely. But when I say Ipanema, I really mean Brazil. And when I say Brazil with the Z, people beat me up. So I should say Brazil with an S, because that's how you spell it in my country, you know. But what is this thing called Brazil? Well, this here, for those of you that know, I had to put the girl from Ipanema at some point in this talk. So there you are, let's get this over with. This is Elo Pinheiro, the actual girl from Ipanema. Maybe you guys didn't know that. There is an actual girl from Ipanema. This is her in, well, a lot of, many years before. Anyway. But Brazil is famous for several other stars, you know. We have a lot of different people and things that come from Brazil that we know and love everywhere on the world. And if you think about Brazil, maybe you don't know this, but Brazil is actually becoming pretty big. I mean, it's well, the fifth largest country in the world. It probably won't get any bigger than that, because, I mean, we don't really do fighting. We have some rivalry with Argentina, but that's pretty much football. So, which is Brazilian for soccer. And it's the sixth biggest economy. That one's rising, actually. We were like 10th or something when a few years before we weren't even on the charts. And now we're sixth. I mean, wow. And there's about 200 million of us, you know, in the country alone. And if you travel enough, you see we're everywhere. We're like plague, you know. It's weird. You know, there are a couple of Brazilians right there. And, well, you see, like I told you before, like you can see here, Brazil was pretty much colonized by everybody, you know. We have all sorts of shapes and colors and sizes, you know, and we love them all. But Brazil has a bit of a couple of problems going on with them, or with us, because, like I said, we were colonized, but the colonization was pretty much an exploitation colony, you know. So they just went there and took our gold and took our stuff, you know, and just sent it back to the metropolis. So we didn't get anything, and we got this culture up to just less than 200 years ago that was just of moving stuff, taking stuff from the people and taking stuff from the country and shoving it elsewhere, you know, to make someone profit. And now we're just a colony of ourselves, because our politicians kind of tend to do this. You know, they just take everything and exploit it, and then they just run off. And there's also an extremely high crime rate. I'm really ashamed to say this. And I'm really ashamed to say all of this, but it's true. And there's a very high corruption rate, you know, from our politicians and even from companies. Very, very high taxes, which is why when you come here, we just buy a lot of stuff, you know. Because, well, you probably get the same things in Brazil for like twice or 3 or 4 times the actual price of the thing. And we have serious health and education issues, which is quite a bummer. And because of those, we don't have enough incentives towards research and development. You know, there are a few exceptions like Petrobras and Embraer, which does airplanes and such. But those are more niche-based than a general, let's do R&D. So, Brazil and Perl. Brazil started paying attention to Perl in the early 90s when we had our first companies growing from a big problem of something called hyperinflation. I don't think any of you guys have faced that, but we did. And where you had to change, to give you an example, you had to change the whole currency and rename it and reset several zeros after just a couple of years. It was totally, weird. So, but eventually this hyperinflation went stable, and people started developing companies there. And the internet was coming over, and so there were a lot of system administrator jobs, and the huge the telecoms went huge from privatization, because they were all state with private software built for them. And after it went commercial, people had to make those private pieces talk to each other. So they turned to Perl. And there's even the first success rate for telecommunication things in Brazil that I'm aware of was one of our telco companies did a WAP system, a WAP, that served about 40 million people, just like that. And it was all Perl. So there are a lot of biolabs. We have people doing the cancer research there, pretty advanced things in Perl, and like biochemistry and biophysics and everything. There are some few e-commerce websites, like there's Estante Virtual, there's Ponto Frio. There are some sites that make a living and they're by doing e-commerce, and they're built solely in Perl. But this scenario hasn't changed that much ever since the early 90s. So how did the Perlmongers start? The first ever group was Curitiba, which is way down south in Brazil, which is a huge country. I'll show a map in a bit. And a mailing list by that guy over there. In 1998, that one, was already doing Perl and already assembling a mailing list, because he didn't know anything about the Perlmongers, and he didn't know anything about the general community, the international community. So he said, let's make my own. And he did, and it was awesome. And then the Perlmongers group started to catch up. Like the Rio group in 2000, the São Paulo group that had a reboot in 2003 and also started in 2000. There's Cascavel, which started with a tech magazine, which was really awesome, and it was one of the de facto mailing lists, the go-to mailing list in Brazil for several years. And now, and this is Brazil, which is pretty big, a little below here, and it has already 13 groups, and it's, if you think about the U.S., I mean, you have like 200 groups, and so you probably think, 13, that's nothing. But to us, it's a really big deal. And just this year, we already started 3 new groups, which is awesome. So we're really seeing a steady growth and a mature. The communities are getting mature in there, But there are several challenges that we need to face and that we face every day. One of them is that it's a pretty big country, in case you haven't noticed. And there's not a lot of interchange because there's very poor transportation and very poor communication things. It's usually just roads, and flying is not as cheap as it should be, and there aren't any railroads, And so it sucks that the several Perlmongers groups can't really talk to each other very efficiently, and also, it's really hard to find good developers, not just Perl developers, but any developers of any kind. I think this is probably a recurrent issue in other places of the world, but it's something that really happens there. And although there are several hype-oriented developers, like people that just start and say, oh, this is so cool, I want to do this, and that is so cool too, and I don't want to do this anymore, I want to do that. So we have to find ways to get them into Perl by doing some hype Perl stuff. So there are also cultural issues, like smaller IT companies aren't really used to sponsor events at all. I mean, the big companies, they're, sure, okay. But the tiny companies, the one that can just take a little money and give something back to the community, they, not so much. And Brazilians, because of all that exploitation culture that we still have, we're really suspicious when someone says, like, I'll solve all your problems, man. Just give me your money. And they're like, no. So, if you remember the bad parts, you see that Brazilians can be very suspicious because of all that. And engagement is hard. But, well, this is a problem everybody faces. So, now, another thing that I really wanted to talk about is that it's so freaking hard to get people speaking English there in Brazil. I actually took this for granted, and it turns out I thought everybody spoke English. Everybody in the IT community spoke English, and it turns out it's not like that at all, because the English speakers in Brazil are anywhere from 2% to 26%, and even 26% is really little, And even if you take like statistics from people that, let's take just IT people, it's like 24%. Let's speak some form of English. I'm not saying good English, just some form of English, And people applying for jobs, and even people at key points in companies. So this is why we started Brazil Perlmongers, and I hope Karen and the Perl Foundation forgive me for, doing that with a logo, but it's for a good cause. You see, Brazil Perlmongers is more like a unity of effort-ish thing, because we try to help solve all those issues by helping local Perlmongers group even talk to each other. We try to make the YAPSI event that we have there, YAPSI Brazil, an itinerant event, happening each time at each city, so that the local people, because of the traveling issues, the local people from that community can enjoy a Perl conference there. And we also stimulate the creation of new groups and help them when they're in trouble, when they're like the leader just disappears, or there are some people trying to do something, and we try to get them together, and you say like, oh, you guys from up the northeast, these guys from the southwest are doing this really cool thing. How about you guys jump in on that? So we try to do the Brazil, and even because of the English barrier, the Brazil world and the other way around, which is why I'm here. I'm talking to you guys about, Brazilian Perl. And I do the same thing there when I tell them about all the cool stuff that's been going on at international events. And there are several very cool projects that either are hosted in Brazil or started by Brazilian hackers. You might know Perlito, which is a compiler. It does Perl to JavaScript, which is very cool. You can run Perl on your web browser. Perl 5 and Perl 6. Not the entire thing, of course, but just a small subset, enough to get you started. So it's cool if you want to do something like a learn Perl from the web, like a short tutorial thing, you can use Perlito. There's the Advent calendar, like you guys do the Perl Advent calendar for Christmas, right? So we decided to do something different, and we do it for the equinox, which has absolutely nothing to do about Brazilian culture. We just thought it was cool, and it happens twice a year. So you guys only get one, we get two, every year. And we have I think it's over 200 articles written ever since we started this, And I can't take credit for it. This was his idea too, the articles. And there's also, everybody's been translating documentation. Everybody that's capable of it, has enough free time, is doing translations, which are really important to us. Because, like I said, only a short bit of Brazilians can speak English. Well, if only a bit could speak Portuguese, we would be in trouble. But, and anyway, we also teach free Perl courses at major universities. I blogged about this for a bit. We gave a course at one of the top universities in Brazil, and then we did it again for another top university. And now, in the middle of the year, I think a couple of months from now, or one or something, we're doing another one at another different university, which is going to be awesome. And every one of them is packed with students, And I remember asking them, why are you here? And several of them were just, well, why not? So maybe we don't really have to be that exciting, to bring people in. You just have to be there and say, well, there's this thing called Perl, which can do very cool things. You want to know about this? And they say, oh, sure, I'm not doing anything right now. So it's raining, there's no beach, so let's do it. Maybe it works best in Rio, I don't know. But, so there's also the open data thing. There's a huge movement from open data. We won, the group from Brazil won the South American competition and went to visit Google headquarters and such. All paid and everything, just because of the work that we've been doing with open data. And the theme of YAPC Brazil this year is open data. So if you like it, you're welcome to join us. And he's also given a talk about open data sometime, I think it's on Friday, right? Right. And there's also booths and hackathons and workshops in the YAPC. But what about the contributions? I mean, even with all those limitations, you can see that we have pretty impressive things, because we're the 5th largest group of CPAN authors, And about 1% of CPAN, over 200, almost 300 distributions are from Brazilian authors. So this is very nice. I mean, even with all those challenges, we're still able to pull something off and give something back to the community. And there are several CPAN goodies that were made by Brazilians. I'm not going to go into them. And of course, I wasn't that egomaniac as to put any of mine there. But so there are several ones. This one is not actually there yet. But Nuba is giving a talk tomorrow about this. So make sure to bug him about that. Since I mentioned about the economy and such, maybe you want to do business with Brazilian companies. Maybe you want to do business with Brazilian people. And you want to have Brazilians spending money at your website or at your e-commerce. And you can do, we have all sorts of modules to handle, like user IDs and authentication for credentials, Brazilian credentials, and holiday issues, and even... this is the postal office that handles all postal messages from Brazil, and you can all plug it in, and documentation is usually in both languages. And you can see it's really a problem. This is Brazil, like right here. Sorry. And it's really hard for us to go to other conferences, because every single conference that's not in Brazil, it's really far. The closest one is Perl Oasis, which is 7,000 kilometers, And it's also too expensive, because if you think about it, we've had this, our economy is kind of under control, but still, and if you do the other way around, I mean, if you have if you think about it like you should get a one-to-one parity, double it, and this is how much we have to spend whenever we go to a country. We even quadruple it if you're talking about euros, right? So, and for you, it might be great because it works the other way around, So there you are. And, well, we had a lot of conferences there, but most of them were short and internal, and happening within several bigger conferences, like free software conferences. And from 2005 to 2009, we decided to call them YAPCs. But they were like YAPCs because it was actually just a booth of like 10-ish Perl hackers that just got together and tried to talk to each other and to make something nice. And we've had 2 for the year. And this is funny because this is actually the very first Perl YAPC. This is the very first YAPC that I'm at that I haven't helped organizing. Why, thank you. I'm not the only one, though. Well, and see, in 2009, we had our own coffee mug incident thing when we just said, we don't care anymore about doing our stuff inside other people's conferences. Let's just make it our own. Let's just have the conference that we want to make. No more like, only newbies, only newbie talks, because, I mean, we have to make it interesting for newcomers, because there's always going to be in the audience. Let's just make the conference, let's just talk about access, let's talk about Perl hacking and real Perl hacking and stuff. And so we decided to do it, and we've been pretty successful so far. We've, from 2009 to this year, we have 2 yearly Perl conferences. We've had the static São Paulo Perl workshop that has like 100 people attending, usually focused on marketing and promoting Perl to other communities, which is awesome. And we have YAPC Brazil, which is more like a grassroots thing where you can just, you already sold on Perl, so you really, I just want to get in and learn about the cool things. And we're still attending all of those free software events during our booths and such that we call YAPCs. And now we have the society thing, which is, we wanted to start one in 2003. It's kind of like the JPA, the Japan Perl Association, but we failed miserably. And one of the reasons, well, some of the reasons were because we had this problem between either companies managing or individuals managing, and there were several, it wasn't really clear about, that it hadn't enough transparency, I suppose, and tons of bureaucracy in Brazil to develop a company, a non-profit one. And, of course, Brazilians can be very suspicious if you add all this stuff. So we have a new version that we're still thinking about it, about how it would take shape. And we really we really want to talk to you guys about this, because it's important to us, because it might shape the future of our community. And so it's a bit more like learning from where JPA and TPF about what they did right, and getting rid of their mistakes and making the good things our own, and adapting them and adjusting them to our culture. And part of that involves making like a consortium-ish thing about the companies that really want to hire Perl developers, so that they can be a part of the loop, not necessarily decision makers, but a part of the loop. And having and receiving donations like yearly fees or whatever, and giving them benefits for this, like free training for their companies, like once a year or whatever, like as a bonus for their admission. And while we're doing that with the money, we can also give free training for students, like sponsored trainings for students, and sponsor them to come to our events, or even to come to foreign events, because it's too expensive for them. And, of course, the sponsoring companies would have spots at our hackathons and at our YAPCs, but that's good, because we want that. We want to merge people that want to have jobs to people that want to give jobs away. So it's a win-win situation. So to sum it up, we love you guys, and we really want you guys to come to São Paulo this year, where it's going to happen I think it's the fourth independent YAPC that we're having, which is really awesome for us. And it's going to happen on October 19th in São Paulo. And if you have any questions, and there are a lot of people that are already coming, that guy over there is already coming, and some other guys are already coming, and hopefully Randall will be able to join us. Maybe you try it. Okay, fair enough. You've helped us a lot at the time, so we forgive you. And I know we even got VTI coming all the way from Russia. So it's really cool. And, of course, it'll be awesome if you guys just joined us, for this. So thank you very much for your time and patience. And that's it. Any questions?
Yeah. From mailing list, I was aware of those, I guess most people get it this way, most of those people who, most of those conferences that you held that were part of other open source conferences,
yes,
going back like 4, 5, 6 years. And I gave some mental thought to attending them, but part of it is that for me to think of taking a trip to Brazil, it requires that I really start planning about it long in advance, particularly because I'm the sort of person that when I go to a country, I want to be able to speak some of the language, right? Down with linguistic imperialism. Right? So I think one of the
Just smile and do some mimics, you'll be fine.
that's for other people. So one of the things is to the extent that you can hold your YAPC at the same time each year, that would be helpful to me, because that can tell me, if I can't go in October 2012, maybe I can swing it for October 13th.
Absolutely.
The other thing is that I thought this was really great, and I want you to blog about this on blogs.perl or something else, is you talk about the free courses in universities, because in doing so, you are ahead of the United States.
There you are. We rock. Well, but honestly, most of these things we just took good ideas from several other people. We talk a lot, I try to travel a lot and to discuss this with other people and try to get it right. You were talking about having a steady date for the YAPCs. And we made that mistake at first, but right now it's pretty steady. I mean, it's either late October or early November. So you can't really miss it, And every year, you have to fix the schedule because there are some other conferences, and we have to set we have to book the place,
Yeah, that's understandable, but just I know YAPC North America is in June. That really simplifies my yearly planning.
So even if you can't make it this year, make sure you book a flight for October.
Just go for the whole month.
Yeah, absolutely. What? Of course, and this is a funny thing. This is actually a funny thing because we try, and it could feel silly for some of you guys, but we really try hard. And I talked to Daisuke-san a lot about syncing, the YAPCs. So you have like NA, Europe, Asia, Brazil, and Russia somewhere in between. But it's like a chain, you just go to your events. And I keep bugging Daisuke, like, whenever the year starts, it's like, when's going to be the next YAPC Asia? And he's like, I don't know, we haven't booked it yet. And then, we don't know too, so what do you do? And, okay, just hold on. And then a couple of days pass, and then he's like, YAPC Asia is going to be at that date. And I'm like, thank God, we can do it we can shift it right for a bit, and then do it there. So people that want to go to both conferences can just as well attend to, even though they're on both sides of the world. I mean, we pay attention even to those kind of details, or at least we try. And we probably screw up a lot, and we most certainly will screw up a lot. But if you have any pointers, and if you attend to and realize where we screwed up, please tell us, because we really want to make it better.
I want to talk about the English track and the translation.
Yes, absolutely. This year we're going to have simultaneous translation. Not just from English to Portuguese, but also on the main room we'll have, hopefully we'll have it, okay, we got confirmation, we'll have Portuguese to English. So you can see the other talks. You don't have to just follow the English-speaking speakers. You can just follow anything on the main track, and we'll try our best to keep it as interesting as possible, so you can just attend to the whole conference and actually understand it, even though you don't speak Portuguese yet,
The website of the conference.
It's also in English and Portuguese. So there you are. Okay, well, thank you.